Get started. Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. My name is Dr. Carolyn Best, and I'm the Director of the Office of Research for the American Urological Association. So on behalf of the Office of Research, I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar that we're hosting with the goal of helping researchers with kidney cancer to better understand the funding opportunities that are available to you through the Kidney Cancer Research Program of the Department of Defense Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. There will also be a bit of information about bladder cancer research funding available through the DoD's peer-reviewed cancer research program. So I have just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. The webinar will be recorded and a link posted on the AUA website within about a week. It will go to the same page where you found the webinar information on the AUA website. Also, following the webinar, we will have a few minutes for questions. To the right of the screen, you should see a Q&A box. If you have any questions for our speaker throughout the presentation, you can type your questions there. At the conclusion of the presentation, I will moderate the questions and present them to our speaker to answer them via the audio connection. And so finally, if you have any questions about the webinar recording or any of the Q&A once we've posted that information, you can reach out to Mr. Eric Cito from our Office of Research here at the same email address where you registered for the webinar. So before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to importantly acknowledge the Kidney Cancer Action Network, or KCAN, and the KCCure patient advocacy organizations, without whose advocacy efforts this funding would not be at all available, let alone possibly growing in future years. And so that's obviously a very important acknowledgement there. We're grateful for their partnership. So with that, I'm very delighted to have the opportunity to introduce our presenter today, Dr. Donna Kimbark. She is the program manager for the DoD Kidney Cancer Research Program and peer-reviewed cancer research programs. Dr. Kimbark, thank you so much for presenting to our community today, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Dr. Best. I really want to welcome everyone to the webinar today. I'm going to go over some of the funding opportunities both for the Kidney Cancer Research Program and the peer-reviewed cancer research program. I'm going to introduce you to the congressionally directed medical research programs first. I'm trying to get the slide to move and it won't move. Okay, so first I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the congressionally directed medical research programs, tell you who we are, just in case you've never applied to the CDMRP before. We are a part of the Department of Defense. We are part of the Army. We are part of the Army Medical Command. Specifically, we are part of the U.S. Army Medical Research and Materiel Command. We sit up at Fort Detrick in Maryland. We are... Our vision and mission are pretty clear. It's about transforming health care for service members and in the American public through innovative and impactful research. We really are about funding groundbreaking, high-impact research to push forward the envelope of patient care. We do this by responsibly managing our collaborations through research that discovers, develops, and delivers healthcare solutions to service members, veterans, and the American public. Now, one of the things that we'd like to talk about a little bit is how the CDMRP came to be. I'm not going to go into great depth in that, but I'm going to tell you what's really important about the CDMRP for you to know. First of all, our funds are targeted research funds that are added to the DoD budget by Congress. Most of our funds are not part of the President's budget. That means that most of our funds are added by Congress in a congressional special interest addition to the DoD appropriation. The DoD appropriation is important because of the fact that it changes on a year-to-year basis. You will see that for the history of the kidney cancer program, it started in 2017 and has continued in 2018. It has changed $10 million the first year, $15 million the second. We don't know whether or not it's going to have a third year in FY19 or not. We don't know if it's going to exist. Therefore, one of the things we really want to think about is we want to fund high impact innovative research to make a mark in kidney cancer research and patient care that we can really say we're changing the health care for service members and all of the American public. We do try to avoid duplication with other funding agencies and target underfunded, unmet gaps within the research funding landscape. We are not here to be in competition with the National Cancer Institute. We cannot be. We are small in comparison to the NCI, but it is important for us to be complementary to them so that we are both, in a way, filling those areas that need to be filled and need to be researched. How we do this, how do we fund research? Well, we do it by a method that was first recommended to us by the National Academy of Medicine, once called the Institute of Medicine, back when the CDMRP first started in the early 1990s. They recommended a model for an application review. It's a two-tiered model, and I'll talk to you about that in depth and how that's going to affect how you should write your applications themselves. Because in the end, this webinar is not only to introduce you to the CDMRP and the Kidney Cancer Research Program, but also to tell you some of the ways to write your application as well as how to avoid pitfalls. Consumers participate throughout our process, and that's an important point to keep in mind when you're writing those applications, because impact on the patient community is very important. The outcomes of research are used by patients, and that's why patients are called the consumers. Each and every program has their own vision and investment strategy to allow for a rapid response. We have the CDMRP vision and mission, but each and every program has their own vision and mission and a flexibility to change that on a yearly basis in order to make the right recommendations for the coming year. Now, this shows you a little bit about the funding for FY18 for the CDMRP. You can see that we have a numerous programs. Just to give you a little bit of historical perspective, when I first started with CDMRP 16 odd years ago, there was 6 programs that the CDMRP had. Now we have a number of programs, as you can see. Kidney cancer, as I said, started in FY17 with $10 million. This year it has $15 million. I'll also be talking about the peer-reviewed cancer research program. I'll be touching on it just a tiny bit. And it has $80 million, and it has 17 topic areas, but I'm mainly going to focus on that bladder cancer topic area that's included under the peer-reviewed cancer research programs. So let's talk about that two-tiered review system in our program cycle and how we manage bringing in applications as well as moving them through award and monitoring. The very first thing that has to happen is the congressional appropriation. Words have to be added to the congressional language on the DoD budget to signify that there's going to be a program. That happened in fiscal year 17 for the Kidney Cancer Research Program. In FY17, we also had a stakeholders meeting that you can see there. That's at about 10:30 on that first circle. That stakeholders meeting is held in the very first year of the program to get an idea of the research funding landscape as well as the patient care landscape, to find out what are the unmet gaps, what needs to be done, and where we can fill those gaps. Our vision setting meeting is the next thing that happens. Vision setting is really our investment strategy meeting. This is where we sit down our panel, our programmatic panel. You can see that in the middle. Our programmatic panel sits down and discusses what those needs, what are the unmet needs, and how can we fashion an investment strategy to answer those needs. Now, that programmatic panel includes people that are physician scientists, include lab bench scientists, it includes active duty urologists, as well as consumers. So we have all of them come together, bringing their expertise together to recommend an investment strategy. That investment strategy then is translated into funding opportunities or program announcements. Those program announcements are released through grants.gov, and then a pre-application receipt happens. Now, for the kidney cancer program and the award mechanisms that I'm going to be talking about for the peer review cancer research program, that pre-application receipt step is simply a letter of intent. There is no screening. There is no invitation to submit. I'm going to say that again. There is no screening and there is no invitation to submit. There is just a letter of intent. You can simply put in your letter of intent, I'm intending to apply to the Kidney Cancer Research Program under the Idea Development Award, period. Okay, that's all you really have to put. So then the next thing that happens after the letter of intent deadline, then the next thing that happens is the application receipt. You do have to put in a full application following the directions in the program announcement. That application receipt will happen, and then finally we will have peer and programmatic review. When we talk about peer and programmatic review, that's our two-tiered review process. That two-tiered review process is what was recommended to us by the National Academy of Medicine in order to do our application review, as I referred to just a few slides ago. The peer review and programmatic review are quite different, and if we look at them, we'll see that there is a partnership between these two. Oops, I'm sorry, I went too far. Between these two processes. The peer review is a criterion-based evaluation of the full proposal package. You send in a package that has your statement of work, you have a project narrative, you have your bio sketch, you have some attachments that might include your budget, your innovation statement, your impact statement, and so on. When we talk to the peer reviewers, now those peer reviewers will include a physician scientist, laboratory scientists, may include veterans, may include active duty oncologists, and will also include consumers. What they do is they look, each one of those will review. And when they review at peer review, they are looking at it according to the criteria that is published in the program announcement. When they look at that publication in the program announcement, that criteria, they're going to do a determination based on absolute scientific merit and outcomes. I'm going to talk about that in detail in a little bit. Now, if we look at the programmatic review, that's the second tier of this partnership. After peer review, programmatic review occurs, and in the programmatic review, it's different. The programmatic reviewers do not have the full application. So what they're going to do is they're going to base their review on what is reviewed at the peer review. Let's talk about the difference here between peer review and programmatic review. How are they different? For the first tier of review, as I said, is a criterion-based review. What the peer reviewers are going to be looking for is technical merit, an assessment that is based on an ideal application, or what I like to say, the gold standard. At this point, there is no comparison between the different applications. I often tell the peer reviewers, I do not want to hear you say this was the best one I reviewed. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. What they're supposed to be doing is looking at it as if it is compared to the best. And when it's compared to the best, ideal, gold standard, not one that they have in their package, but a gold standard, then they will then review it accordingly. The panels, as I said, are comprised of scientific and consumer reviewers. We don't have any standing panels. We recruit them on a yearly basis, and they are recruited based on their expertise. And the identities between the applicants and the reviewers are not known, so there should be no contact between the two because we're looking to decrease conflict of interest. The outcome of the peer review is the summary statement. The summary statement has not only numeric scores, but also the strengths and weaknesses written out in detail. And those are really important for the next tier of review. The next tier of review is the programmatic review. The summary statements, that's the deliverable from the peer review. It goes forward to the programmatic reviewers. The programmatic reviewers then review what's been given to them by the summary statement. Now they have to sit there and they have to compare the strengths and weaknesses and numeric score of one as compared to the strengths and weaknesses and the numeric score of the other. They're looking for a strong scientific merit, really the potential for impact, how well it adhered to the the intent of the award mechanism, and the program relevance. One of the things they also have to consider is the portfolio composition. If they have 3 different idea development awards, 2 of them are on biomarkers, and another one is on imaging, and the one they have to decide on which one should be recommended for funding. They might pick one of the biomarkers and the imaging one simply because of the fact that they're trying to balance the portfolio. Now the imaging one might be slightly lower in score than one of the biomarker ones that they're not going to fund. That's what happens when you're considering portfolio composition. Now, the programmatic panel members, as I said, are composed of consumers, clinicians, and researchers, as well as an active duty urologist. I want to make a point that there's no interaction between the programmatic reviewers and the applicants either. Programmatic reviewers, please go on our website and please find out who those programmatic reviewers are. You should not, you cannot, you must not add them as a consultant or anything else as an advisor on your application. That's a complete no-no, and you will be withdrawn because of it if you add a programmatic reviewer on your application. We might have some ad hoc reviewers on our programmatic panel to increase the expertise that we might need. And our final outcome of the programmatic review is the funding recommendation list. That funding recommendation list will then go to the approval authority, and then negotiations start. After negotiations and the award is made, we monitor that award through the lifetime of the award. Now, when you want to go ahead and you want to apply, how do you apply? Well, here is a nice slide that you should, maybe jot down that address, which is the CDMRP URL that you have this address for funding opportunities. Up on the taskbar, you see where funding opportunities. You can click on that funding opportunities, or you can go to the big square box on the left-hand side and open up funding opportunities there. You can start a pre-application through our portal system that's called eBRAP to start pre-applications. So that's one of the places that you can find funding opportunities on the web. Another place that you can go to find funding opportunities is grants.gov. We do release all of our program announcements onto grants.gov. Pre-applications and letter of intents are done through the EBRAP system, which is the CDMRP portal. But if you're an extramural organization, all extramural organizations must apply through grants.gov. If you want to find the kidney cancer program announcements, you should put in the search area there that's outlined 12.420, and you'll see all of the opportunities that are listed for CDMRP, including the kidney cancer and the peer review cancer research programs. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the different types of award mechanisms that you will see that are offered by the Kidney Cancer Program as well as the Peer Review Cancer Research Program. There are two different pipelines that we like to talk about, the Career Development and the Research Awards. Career Development Awards might hit on predoctoral or postdoctoral fellows, and might look at physician scientists, which are important, new investigators, and established investigators. We're really trying to develop a kidney cancer or a bladder cancer community. We know that there hasn't been enough investment in bringing early career scientists or junior scientists into kidney cancer and bladder cancer, and the only way to do that is to entice them to be able to study in these areas. So that's why we're looking at career development at these different stages. Now, there are different types of research awards. There's those initial concepts, which are the back of the napkin kind of ideas that you might have at a meeting or so on. But then they move into early ideas that are more developed, might have a little bit of preliminary data. Also, you're looking at translational and team science that work together towards clinical trials. I want to tell you right now that the kidney cancer program does not have any clinical trials award mechanisms offered at this time. So what do we have offered? I'm going to go through a couple of different ones that we have offered to give you a really clear idea. The kidney cancer funding opportunities that are all about innovation are the Concept Award and the Idea Development Award. The Concept Award is really supporting innovative, high-risk, high-gain research. It's really important to note that the Concept Award is for exempt studies, exempt human studies or animal studies. That's an important clue. Also, a Concept Award is completely blinded. That means that you cannot reference yourself anywhere in the one-page project narrative or in any of the attachments, except for the budget and the SOW, which will not be reviewed by peer or programmatic review. So here what you're really trying to do is you're trying to put together those early ideas, hypothesis testing. There's a huge emphasis on innovation. This is a one project narrative. It's open right now. It's on the street right now. And it's really easy to put together. Go ahead. That the LOI deadline is July 11th. That's not far from today. So go ahead and put in that intent that you're going to go ahead and apply to the Concept Award. It's really important for you to do that. The application deadline is actually August 8th. So you'd have until August 8th to actually write and put together the application package. But you can put your letter of intent in now. The direct costs are $75K over 1 year. So it's just like a little seed money. That's all, just to get things running. And you don't need any preliminary data. So it's that's the back of the napkin type of award mechanism we're talking about there. Now, once you get that preliminary data, what are you going to do with it? Well, maybe you had a Concept Award in the past, or you have some preliminary data already from another study that you've done, and you need to develop that preliminary data before you can go to an R01. This is the Idea Development Award. We're supporting that innovative, high-risk, high-gain type of research, but you have a developed idea. You're trying to move it forward so that you can get robust data to go into an RO1. We have an emphasis on innovation. This is not supposed to be the next incremental step per se, but you're supposed to be taking that preliminary data and making a leap. So the direct costs here are $400K over 2 years. The LOI deadline for that one is 5 September, and the application deadline is 26 September. So your letter of intent should be in by the 5th, and you should be writing your application off from now until the 26th. I really would like it if you maybe applied a little bit earlier than the 26th. It makes things easier for everybody. But let's move to the next funding opportunities that are available from the KCRP program, and that's clinical investment. This is clinical research, not clinical trials, but clinical research. Remember I told you about career development and how important that was for the KCRP? We have a physician research award. What we're really looking for are those early first faculty level appointments within 3 years of your first faculty level appointment. We're asking for 25% protected time for this research. Now, there could be more than that. We're more than happy that it's more than that, but at least 25% protected time. This supports laboratory time for the early career physician to do research. We understand that a lot of physicians can't get that time to do this, and this is what we're trying to offer with this award. This is a 2-year award for $200K. Preliminary data is not required for this. The LOI deadline is the 5th of September. The application deadline is the 26th of September. The Translational Partnership Research Award is a type of award mechanism where we're putting together 2 investigators. One is a clinician and one is a laboratory bench scientist. We're bringing them together. They're assistant professor level or higher. Bringing these two people together to work on a synergistic overarching project that is translational in nature. You're bringing the bedside back to the bench and the bench back to the bedside. So this is preliminary data is required here, and this is $600K over the 2 partners for 3 years. And the LOI deadline is 5 September, and the application deadline is 26 September. Now, this is the last kidney cancer research program funding opportunity, and that's the Technology Development Award. The Technology Development Award is a new award program announcement. We're very excited about this one because it's something very, very out there. It's a product-driven type of award mechanism. We're looking for at or above the assistant professor level. Expertise outside of KC is encouraged, but it's always important to bring in that expert so you have that support in a collaborative way. The product-driven intended to advance the development of technologies within kidney cancer. You could have some preliminary data here, but it doesn't have to be within kidney cancer. You can have data in other cancers or in other fields completely, and you're bringing it into kidney cancer. We're trying to bring technologies into kidney cancer, new and exciting technologies into kidney cancer. A transition plan for future development of a tangible product must be included. The preliminary data is required, and the direct cost is $300K for up to 3 years. The LOI deadline is the 5th of September, and the application deadline is the 26th of September. So if we go to the next slide, this is for the peer review cancer research program funding opportunities for bladder cancer in career development. I put those in red so you know that there is a difference here. This is not the KC program. You have to look under peer review cancer research program. And you have to find the topic area under the peer review cancer research program. That's bladder cancer. We have two award mechanisms, the Horizon Award mechanism and the Career Development Award mechanism. The Horizon Award mechanism is just in its pre-announcement phase right now. We will be releasing this award mechanism at the middle of July. This is for pre-doctoral candidates or postdoctoral fellows. We're really trying to focus in on those junior level investigators to bring them into bladder cancer. A career development or research development plan is required. This is developing that person, that candidate, into a strong researcher in bladder cancer, not kidney cancer. This is only for bladder cancer. Kidney cancer is not allowed. There's an emphasis on impact for patient care. Military relevance is a requirement, and if you look at the program announcement, you'll get more information about that. I'm not going to belabor that point. Preliminary data is not required, and it's a direct cost for $150K, and that should say over 2 years. And finally, the Career Development Award for bladder cancer under the Peer Review Cancer Research Program. It's opened right now. It's an independent investigators within 10 years of their terminal degree, accepting time spent in medical residency or on family medical leave. There's a military relevance required, and there's emphasis on impact here. So preliminary data is not required, and direct costs are $360K over 3 years. Both of these have an LOI deadline of 28th August with an application deadline on the 26th of September. Remember, these are just for bladder cancer, and kidney cancer is not allowed for these. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about strategies for success and components for a successful application. Okay, one of the things I always like to tell people on this slide is that the most important part of this slide is right at the bottom. The single most important tip I can give you is to read the announcement. A lot of people flip through the front of the announcement. They look at the front page because that's where all the deadlines are. Then they flip through the front because they don't want to read all the gobbledygook. And they get to the project narrative and what they're supposed to apply, how they're supposed to apply for the letter of intent and the project narrative and so on for the full application. And they don't read anything else. That's a huge mistake. That's poor grantsmanship. Good grantsmanship is you sit down, maybe with a glass of wine, whatever you want. You sit down, a cup of coffee, and you start highlighting this program announcement, because this program announcement is now going to be your guide. It's going to be your roadmap. You're on a treasure hunt, okay? And this is where the X is. How to do it is where the X is. It's right here. So you really have to go through. We have to go through step by step, reading the intent of the award mechanism, reading the program goals, figuring out if there's focus areas, how you can answer those focus areas. What is the award intent? Are you even eligible for this? I've had people come in and apply for a career development award when they are full professors. You are not eligible for this award, okay? So that's really important. Look at your eligibility. And then one of the clues of a really good grantsman is went to the back of the program announcement and read the peer review criteria. Why would you read the peer review criteria when you're not even the peer reviewer? Because what we've done is we've taken the project narrative, everything that I've told you I want in the project narrative or the innovation statement. I've taken all of those sentences, describe this, tell me what the pitfalls are, blah, 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 all of that. And I've turned each one of those into a question for the peer reviewers. The peer reviewers then tick off each one of those questions. If you haven't answered one of those questions, that gives the peer reviewer a weakness to put down on their summary statement. You want 0 weaknesses on your summary statement. Every time you don't answer one of those peer review criteria, you leave the door open for a weakness. So that's really important. Also, it's also very important to hit all the deadlines. If you don't hit the deadlines, you're not going to be let in the door. It's just as simple as that. Now, strategies for success. Some really good important things is that you should really align what your proposed work is going to be with a specific announcement. For instance, if you're doing something that's really technologically advanced, but you really just need a little tiny bit of, you need to develop it a little bit, that's a technology development award. Maybe you don't have any really strong preliminary data, but you have this really great idea. Let's go to concept award, okay? So really know your different award mechanisms and which one you should apply for. And I really like to emphasize impact, which is kind of like overemphasizing it. But impact itself is important because our consumers on our peer review panels and our programmatic panels can really sway a panel. If there's no impact there, there's going to be you're going to have a hard sell there to really get this application moving through. So make sure that you justify why a basic research would be impactful, why a concept award would be impactful, and so on. Innovation is not your next step. It's not taking, I had a great idea for breast cancer. I've been doing it in breast cancer cell lines. Now I'm going to do it in kidney cancer cell lines. That is not innovative at all. Okay, so really pay attention to what innovation is. I like to tell people often that when I think about innovation, I think about beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. You know it when you see it. So feasibility is important. Research strategy and feasibility is extremely important. You have to have the right expertise. When I talked about the technology development award mechanism, I told you that you could be outside of kidney cancer and bring a collaborator in though that has kidney cancer expertise. Excuse me. That's really important to have the right expertise with you to help you along. If you have something that you're going to be using 100 mice for and you want to know whether or not it's going to be appropriately powered, bring in your statistician not 5 minutes or 30 minutes before you're about to submit your grant. Bring them in a couple of weeks early so that they can help you along the way. Okay, so and also demonstrate that availability and access to those critical resources. I love this slide because it's about timing. On the front page of each program announcement are the deadlines. Pay attention to the deadlines. Get everyone online and ready to go. Remember that this year the grants.gov is using grants.gov is using its workspace. That workspace, everyone has to be working together on that workspace. And it's important that everybody is using the same Adobe on that workspace. So it's important that everyone knows how to use it. So bring everyone up to speed. Grantsmanship, as I've said before, it's important. Pay attention to what the peer reviewers are going to review you for. Pay attention to what the programmatic reviewers are going to review you for. Also, a bunch of a paragraph with one abbreviation after another abbreviation and heavy jargon is not going to get you anywhere. Yes, you might be the smartest person on the planet, but you can't communicate correctly. So really be clear and try to unburden your writing. Take away if you have to use a word utilization. Why are you using utilize instead of use? Simplify the sentence. Okay, and don't break the rules for the deadlines. Always be compliant. So, some pitfalls to avoid in your application process. This is an important part too. Okay, I already told you, do not use the programmatic panel members for that program for that fiscal year. You can find the programmatic panel members on our web pages. I will show you those web page links. Do not exceed the page limits, because if you exceed the page limits, you're either going to not be compliant, or if you exceed page limits with your bio sketch and so on, we're going to take away those extra pages. They're just going to disappear. And check your files for creating that PDF version, because sometimes when you create a PDF version, what it does is it actually ends up giving you extra pages. Do not miss the submission deadline. We often like to tell people submit 72 hours before. I can tell you that most people don't, but we really like to see it at 72 hours before. So if there is a glitch, then we don't have to worry about it. I've seen it happen. I actually watched one time where there was a glitch in the portal and people couldn't get in the door. So it's always important to start early. Submit the correct project narrative and the budget because those cannot be changed around or uploaded again during the verification period where you can go in and take a look at your application after the deadline. So this project narrative and budget cannot be changed. You go to the next slide, and this is the slide that has all of the important URLs. The top URL is the CDMRP URL for you to take a look at CDMRP's website and kind of cruise around, get an idea of who we are. And then I have two other URLs, one for the KCRP, which is the kidney cancer, and the other for the peer review cancer, which is for bladder cancer. I invite you to take a look at both of those. Both of those will have your programmatic review members as well as any ad hoc members that might be important. So take a look, and I'd be more than willing to entertain any questions now.
Dr. Kimbark, thank you so very much. That was a wonderful set of incredibly important information that I know will be helpful to the prospective applicants for both the KCRP and the PRCRP. So before we start having questions come in, while we are receiving them, and for those of you who missed the introduction to this call, please do type your questions into the Q&A box on the side of your screen. You should be able to find it without any difficulty. I will ask the first one while we're receiving questions. So Dr. Kimbark, can you talk a little bit about common errors that are made when submitting a concept award application where the applicant and collaborator's identity should be blinded?
Yes. What we often see there is some of the very easy ones that people don't even realize that they're doing sometimes is they cite themselves. They'll talk about a laboratory recently, found such and such, and then they cite themselves in the reference. That is not a great thing to do. We've also had people go ahead and reference a URL, which brings us to their web page, and unidentifies them that way. Sometimes they even just say the Mayo Clinic, for instance, and that's where they are. They happen to be at the Mayo Clinic. It's always important to try to weed your way around there and try not to use the I, we, our, we and our collaborators, the team. Stop using those types of words and try to work on a 30,000-foot level rather than a personalized level for the concept award.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question related to the concept award. Is a basic science concept equally valued in comparison to a translational or clinical science concept?
Well, a clinical science concept and a translational concept is not allowed. A concept award is only allowed for exempt review, so for human use. So you have to have something that's de-identified and can go through an exempt review process instead of expedited or full board. So, and I can tell you that of course, basic science is one of the most important sciences that we have in the concept award. We do have some applied science in the concept award that would be animal use and so on. And, I would say that I have seen both funded and equally so.
Great. Hang on, I'm just having to scroll a little bit of readability issue with my Q&A. Okay, can the same PI submit an application both for the concept award and for the physician research award?
Yes, as long as they are different research projects.
Great. Are applications from outside the U.S. Acceptable?
Yes. It's
Great.
important that they follow all of the instructions in the general application instructions that are a companion guide to how to apply.
Excellent. Just to be clear, when you talked about the letter of intent, you said that a description of the project really isn't necessary, just to state that we intend to submit an application. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the minimal that is required. It's always nice to have you add in a little bit more because it does help us administratively figure out how we're going to peer review your application. So more is always better, but the minimal requirement is that you say that you're going to apply.
Wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about the nature of the partnership for the Translational Partnership Research Award? Are the levels of effort for the clinician and the non-clinician expected to be approximately the same? Is there some understanding or allowance given for a clinician perhaps having less time to commit to the project than the basic scientist?
I think what's most important with that one is it must be synergistic. We don't want the clinician to specifically be only providing samples. Okay, that's important. Each partner must have an intellectual stake in the overarching project. So there must be some work being done by the physician, by the laboratory scientist. Now, I can imagine that a physician that's working with a laboratory scientist in a specific type of project might not be working, might not be working 50% effort or something. They might be only working like 10 or 12% effort, and the laboratory science is doing more of the effort on it. But there has to be an intellectual stake, and there has to be part of the work has to be being done by the physician scientist as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. While we're waiting for any other questions to come in, so far I've presented all of those that have been submitted. I do want to remind everyone that we will have the recording of the full webinar posted on the AUA website in about a week, hopefully less if we can manage it. So with that, are there any other questions? Give another few seconds for them to be submitted. Any final questions? Okay, Dr. Kimbark, I'd like to thank you once again, not only on behalf of the American Urological Association and our advocacy partners, Kidney Cancer Action Network and KCCure and others, but I'd also like to thank you on behalf of our entire research community, the kidney cancer research community, the bladder cancer research community. We so appreciate the time that you've taken with us today and the information that you've shared. And we certainly hope to submit some outstanding applications to these programs in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Best. I want to put in a really strong plug. Please go ahead and apply for the Kidney Cancer Research Program. This is our second year. It's important to show how important it is not only to the community that this program succeed, but also to all of our stakeholders, patients and so on. That it really is an important part of our community that we're now growing a kidney cancer program, a program that's specific for kidney cancer, and how important it is to us, not only as not me only as a program, but also to the patient and the research community. So thank you very much, and apply.
Wonderful. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great afternoon.